Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our celebration of the dynamic group of authors and books spotlighted in our latest 5 over 50 feature. My name is Indialina Gonzalez, and I am the features editor of Poets and Writers magazine. Tonight's event will include readings from our 5 debut authors, which will be followed by a conversation about their paths to publication. For a decade, yes, that is a whole 10 years, we have devoted space in each November-December issue to celebrating debut authors over the age of 50 with first books published during the current calendar year. This beloved feature began with our belief that new does not necessarily mean young, and that there is beauty in writers who have allowed the ebb and flow of life to transform them and their words such that they produce brilliant works of poetry and prose arriving on their own time. Love all the hearts. Oh my gosh, this is my first time seeing all the emojis like that. Great. So, the writer spotlight in this year's issue reflect on how they took the leap to overcome their fears, their struggles to wake up with the rising sun and right before the days begin, how sharing the stories of their ancestors awakened their creativity, the importance of perseverance, even when life has the rotten habit of interfering, and the triumph of growing up and cultivating one's calmness. This evening, depending on what time zone you're in, we have the honor of hearing from and sharing virtual space with Jennifer Eli Bowen, author of The Book of Kin, On Absence, Love, and Being There, published by Milkweed Editions, Princess Joy L. Perry, author of This Here Is Love, published by Norton, Yael Valencia Aldana, author of Black Mestiza, published by University Press of Kentucky, Vishwas R. Gaitonde, author of On Earth as It Is in Heaven, published by Orison Books, and Lauren K. Watel, author of Book of Potions, published by Sarabande Books. I'm so happy to have you all joining us, and congratulations again on the publication of your beautiful debuts. Some quick housekeeping notes for us all to keep in mind. We kindly ask that our audience members stay muted throughout the entirety of the event. We're doing great thus far. That way we can fully enjoy the authors without any disruption or background noise. Additionally, please feel free to utilize the chat feature and share any questions you may have for the writers so we can incorporate as many of them as possible at the end when we get to the Q&A. And on that note, this is the gentlest of reminders to keep the chat a respectful space for literary conversation. Additionally, please consider becoming a member of the Poets and Writers community if you aren't already, so we can continue offering programs such as this one and producing even more exciting editorial features, also such as this one. We will provide a link in the chat to our membership page for those of you who are interested. We have also created a bookshop page, including the titles of all of tonight's authors, should you feel inspired to purchase their works and support independent booksellers in the process. That will be in the chat as well as a link to the online feature. So as a bonus to the essays that appear in print, which are beautifully written, by the way, we also have exclusive excerpts and readings by our beloved 5 over 50 authors that are also on our website. So please visit that link and enjoy those extra goodies after the event. And speaking of extra goodies, this year's November-December magazine also includes a retrospective on all the 5 over 50 authors that have graced our pages over the years. So that's 50 authors in total, if I'm doing my math right. So please feel free to check that out as well via the link in the chat. And now I'm going to stop talking and we're going to head into the readings. All right? So we're going to kick things off with Jennifer Eli Bowen. Jen is a writer, arts instructor, and editor whose debut book is the essay collection, The Book of Kin, On Absence, Love, and Being There, Milkweed Editions. Her work has received a Pushcart Prize, the Arts and Letters Prize, the Tim McGinnis Award, and has appeared in The Sun, the Iowa Review, Orion, and Kenyon Review, among others. Jen is the founder of the Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop. She teaches creative writing in prisons across the state of Minnesota and occasionally at local colleges. She also edits creative prose and conducts interviews. Jen lives in St. Paul, a block in any direction from sidewalk poetry and snow. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, India. Thank you, poets and writers. And thank you to everyone who is here. It's such a fun and beautiful honor to be featured this way. So I'm going to read to you from the middle of an essay from the middle of this book. The essay is called Leaving Delicious. Delicious is a rooster who, up to the point of this essay, had not realized was male. He was crowing in my yard, and the crux of it is very hard for abandoned children to abandon their beloved pets. So I will just jump right in. I stood in line until I had a chance to talk to the farmer about Delicious. playful rooster, nearly died as a chick rooster. Runs to me when I approach, eats from my hand, stands on my shoulder, leans in close and will not desist until he makes eye contact. Too special to die, but too male to stay. I gave this farmer a knowing glance, and he did not give me a knowing glance in return. I can't keep him in the city, I said finally. He shifted his weight. Then he had a knowing glance. He sighed. I think he shook his head. His was my last farm, he my last hope. The gracious thing would have been to offer him an out, to say, "Don't worry, thank you for your time. It was only a thought." I'm not gracious. I stared. I waited for his eyes to return to mine, and when they did, I held his eye contact shamelessly. The farmer's eyes grew soft, then amused, then kind. "All right," he said with the smallest of smiles. He talked to me without a hint of condescension. Then he said, "Bring him tomorrow." The next day I returned, cradling delicious. The apple shack buzzed with people and the air smelled sweet. The farmer stood chatting with a customer. Between sentences, he glanced up and grinned at me, and he made a clucking sound. Then he nodded at Delicious, who sat calmly in my arms. "That rooster is used to being held," the farmer said, with what I chose to believe was admiration. Without another word, he led me to an empty grass-bottomed pen between the wooden train and the pygmy goat. I settled Delicious inside, and despite my best efforts to prevent it, I started to cry. The farmer pretended not to notice as he closed the door. He's raised animals, of course, but never one this special. I reminded him again of the yolk sack that had dangled outside this rooster's body and his near death and his favorite perch, also known as my shoulder. The farmer listened quietly with an impatience likely born from embarrassment. I pressed upon him a plastic baggie half full of chicken scratch, and he assured me he had two 20-pound bags in the barn. A boy near the wooden train watched the scene, then said to his mother with some alarm, "Mama, why that lady did hold a chicken?" The farm was busy that fall day with people you-picking, people who drive out this way only once a year, then head home to bake an apple crisp. People like me. The farmer looked at me, crying in the center of his orchard, in the middle of his business, during the heart of a peak Sunday, exposed before curious families and a bleeding goat. "He does like to be held," I reiterated for the 20th time, and then, in case he hadn't understood, I said it a little differently. "He will want to be held." And I continued on until finally, mercifully, the farmer cut me off. I was a mess before a crowd of strangers, because I did not want to leave this bird behind, because the farmer was kind to me for no other reason than I asked him to be, and I did not know you could just ask for that. I was a mess because I didn't know my father or my grandfather, but if I had, I think they would have been warm like this farmer. The farmer, who was not my kin and never will be, smiled a pained smile and said, not unkindly, "All right then, head on back to your urban farm now, Mama." He paused like he really wasn't sure what the hell else to say. "Maybe I'll read about you in the papers someday." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was beautiful. Too special to die, but too male to stay. Yeah, that one got me for sure. Thank you. All right. Our second author this evening is Princess Joy L. Perry, the recipient of a Virginia Commission for the Arts Fellowship and a winner of the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Award. Her short stories have appeared in All About Skin, African American Review, and Quelly Journal. She lives in Norfolk, Virginia. Her debut novel is This Here Is Love, published by Norton. The floor is yours, Princess.
Thank you. I'm jumping in also in the middle of a scene. What you need to know about the character Bless is that she's been taken into, she's enslaved. She's been taken into the master's house since she was about 7 years old, but she has gotten herself in trouble in that house, crossed a line that she shouldn't have crossed, and she's been sent to the fields. They call it being put to ground. And so she's finally back with her mother. And where we start is her first day back in the fields. And her mother has arranged for a young man to help her learn the things she needs to know, but he's late getting there. Jeremiah grabbed her elbow. Time to eat. You don't see everybody gone? Bless looked up dizzily to see that it was so. At 11, the hands were allowed their first break of the day. As if by stealthy agreement, they had headed to the cabins or shade tree to eat bread and meat rinds or cold potatoes stuffed in their pockets. Bless let go of the hoe. Her legs gave way. Fear of Rove's whip was all that had kept her standing. Jeremiah looked down at her. Nobody come fetch you? Bless shook her head. Jeremiah squatted beside her. Rove set me patching coops and pins this morning, or I'd have been here. I thought some of the others would take you in hand. His gaze raked over the bloodstains on the back of her dress, then settled on the shade tree where the field hands talked and ate their lunch. They ain't mean. They just don't know what to make of you. That being the case, there was no need to lead her over to the group. The others would find reason to wander away, and they would be mad at him for causing them to waste their precious few minutes of leisure. Jeremiah did not relish taking his break in the sun, but she looked so tired, he sat cross-legged on the ground beside her. He examined Bless for a moment, the sweat beading in the parts of her braided hair and racing down her temples. From around his waist, he untied a small bladder of water. He uncorked it and handed it to her. Bless drank just a few swallows, though she wanted more. She handed the vessel back to him. You come out here like that? She thought he meant her ridiculous clothes. It's all I got, she said. No, with your head bare. Sun was hardly up when we came out here. He looked at her with a mix of incredulity and pity. Perhaps she thought the sun held the same position all day. Jeremiah snatched a kerchief from the waistband of his breeches and held it out to Bless. He didn't miss the way her nose wrinkled. "Naw," Jeremiah said, "it ain't clean and it don't smell good, but it'll keep the sun from burning out your brain." He waited until she draped it over her hair. Despite the powerful smell that enveloped her face like a caul, Bless had to admit the top of her sun-baked head already felt better. "Thank you," she said. "Bring your own tomorrow," Jeremiah said. "It's the only extra I got." As Bless secured the knot of the scarf at the nape of her neck, Jeremiah withdrew cornbread smeared with bacon fat from his pocket. He took a big bite and grimaced at the roast she had butchered. "You better eat," he said. "I gotta teach you, and Rove won't allow much time." Bless glanced away. She had also forgotten to bring the cornbread. Jeremiah had shared his water. He had loaned her his extra kerchief. She did not want to ask for his food. Then she remembered. Bless searched the pocket still tied to her skirt. She found the slice of friendship cake still wrapped in Mr. Jason's linen handkerchief. She peeled back the squashed folds with their neatly embroidered initials and almost swooned from the smell of sweetly fermented fruit. After so many days, the nuts were soft, the fruit rubbery, the cake crumbled like sand, yet the essentials, flavor and spice, survived. Flour, sugar, yeast, and milk, mixed and set aside in a warm place. Cassie had returned to it every day to feed the dough. She nicked her fingers on the cracked shells of the pecans and walnuts. Cassie herself had laid the fire. She cooled and heated until the temperature was just right. Only then, after 14 days, did she drain the fruit from sweet liquor and mix it with the snap of nuts and sour, flourishing dough. Even stale, it was the best cake Bless had ever eaten. It tasted like mothering. With care, Bless folded the delicate cloth. "Who's that?" Jeremiah asked, his gaze on the lettered stitching. "Mr. Jason's," Bless said. She returned the token to her pocket. Jeremiah studied her, his gaze penetrating as the darts of sun on her scalp, as if he were trying to see the structures and blind alleyways in her head, but he said nothing else. A few minutes more of pensive chewing and draining the canteen, then he motioned Bless up and sprang to his feet. While the other workers finished their lunch in the shade of the big cedar, he showed Bless how to properly wield the hoe, how to use her weight, taut wrists, and the sharp edge of the blade to chop the choking weeds. Like this, he said, or uh-uh. Mostly, Jeremiah remained thoughtful as he showed, corrected, and covered for Bless by going back for the weeds she had missed. When he spoke again, he did not dally in the details. What I can't understand, he said, his bafflement sincere, is how in the world you can love them. Bless equaled Jeremiah's bewilderment when she asked in return, who else was there for me to love? Thank you.
Wow, Princess. Those details were stunning. That was like a masterclass in how you do details when it comes to fiction, I would say personally. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for that. Thank you. All right. We're going to follow that up with a reading from Yael Valencia Aldana. Yael is a Caribbean Afro-Latin writer and poet. She's the author of the chapbook Aliens with Bottle Cap Press and the poetry collection Black Mestiza with University Press of Kentucky. She is a Pushcart Prize winner, as well as a winner of the University Press of Kentucky New Poetry and Prose Series and a finalist for the AWP Kurt Brown Scholarship in Creative Nonfiction. She earned a master's degree in Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies from Florida Atlantic University and an MFA in Creative Writing from Florida International University. She is the editor-in-chief at Purple Ink Press and a board member of Ant Loot Press. She teaches creative writing in Southern California, where she lives with her family and pets. Welcome, Yael.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so honored to be among these wonderful writers. I'm first going to read my poem Talisman, which is basically what my poetry is all about. Talisman. I made a new talisman that is both necklace and conjuring. It is of you and of them and of me. Your initials in scrolled shiny silver rests on my neck. Mother, your name means blood, namesake, origins. We are of the Caribbean. Our names mean salt water in the veins, buried navel strings. You are recently dead. And what of them? Ancestors. The word means namesakes, origins, blood, means nothing is lost, means the Western world, means the New World, which was not new because people were already there. They have been dead for centuries, dragged to the bottom of the sea on the Middle Passage in chains, dragged to the bottom of the sea for gold, for silver. On the galleon, La Nuestra Senora de Atocha, on the Guineaman, the Hannibal, dragged out of the Green Dome Mountains of Santa Marta, Colombia, before it was Santa Marta, before it was Colombia. I wear their coin around my neck next to your initials, a coin dredged from their island under the sea, waterlogged graveyard, of Colombian gold, of Caribbean silver. I wear their coin for the ancestors who slipped past conquistador steel to peer gold-rimmed around sloped Santa Marta peaks, for the ones that got caught and broke under Spanish yokes, under British yokes. I wear their coins for the ones doing the catching, for the ones that came from Scotland with money, for those that came from Aldana, Spain for money, for those that came from Valencia, Spain for money, their riches dragged down into shipwreck-soaked, sodden sands, lost before reaching Spanish coffers, before reaching English coffers, for me to find and put around my neck. Mother, no men stay in our family. They keep on going, leaving beautiful, dusky, sometimes dark-skinned, sometimes half-cased children in their wake. All of you, curl in my ear. I will carry you. Sleep in my Mestiza's body. Lay aside the violence that forged this body, my body. Lay inside my shell of soul and flesh. We are all in here together. Distilled into this one casing of corpuscles, sleep in my husk of flesh and soul. I will carry you. I will read one more poem. Amada de mi alma, give me this. Ada Limon. If there was a pill, maybe red, liquid, thin, rubbered membrane, or maybe orange, oval, and smooth, or maybe white and chalky, that would sever the nexus between us, I would throw it down my moist, peached maw. He, too, would pinch it between his potato farmer fingers, muscle it dry across his tongue, sideways down his throat, greedily take it to be rid of me. We are all eye-rolling, all lip-curling, sneering resistance to all peace. We cannot stand each other, but we love each other. In this quiet, his dry, warm skin becomes mine. When in proximity, his chest opens, a galaxy. My universe spins into his, all hot plasma. We are luminous gas giants, winking on and off, moving past, moving into one darkness, lighted cold fusion. He purses his lips as if to say, no, we cannot escape this gravity. I point my chin as if to say, yes, we have lured each other here. He lifts his dark, dark eyes to mine as if to say, no, we cannot escape this singularity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yael. Thank you for sharing your musicality with us, your poetic truth, historic truth, personal truth. I love it. And someone in the chat even said that they had the rhythm of waves, especially that first poem. You could feel the waves coming in and going back. So thank you for that. Poetry is in the Zoom room with us tonight. All right. Our fourth reader this evening is Vishwas R. Gaitonde. Vishwas's formative years were spent in India. He has also lived in Britain and now calls North Carolina home. His short story collection, On Earth as It Is in Heaven, won the 2023 Orison Prize for Fiction and was published in September. Literary journals where his work has been published include the Iowa Review, Bellevue Literary Review, Santa Monica Review, Epiphany, Gargoyle, and Mid-American Review. Distinctions include 2 residency fellowships each to the Anderson Center for Interdisciplinary Studies in Minnesota and the Hawthorne Den Castle International Writers Retreat in Scotland. He has been awarded scholarships by the Sewanee Writers Conference, Tin House Summer Writing Workshops, and the Community of Writers Workshop. When Vishwas isn't writing or editing, he loves listening to music, traveling, and frequenting bookstores. Take it away, Vishwas.
Thank you, India, and thank you to everybody in Poets and Writers for this honor. I'm going to be reading from my title story, On Earth as It Is in Heaven. This is set in a town in South India. The narrator is a small boy, and he's with his father on the terrace of a house looking up at the night sky. High up on the infinite dome above my head shone 3 bright stars in a neat little row, the belt of Orion. See that star? My father said, pointing to a dull, rusty red star lying diagonally across the belt. Betelgeuse to the Western astronomers, Hiruvadirai in Tamil, Ardra in Sanskrit. That is one huge star. If it switched places with our sun, we wouldn't be here. We'd be engulfed by flames. as the star would extend as far as the orbit of Mars. I looked up respectfully at Betelgeuse, alias Thiruvadirai. They taught you about the speed of light at school yet? My father asked, and then continued. Light moves at 186,000 miles per second. Now, if a light from an object traveling at this speed takes a year to reach our eye, we say that object is 1 light year away. It also means you are not seeing that object as it is today. You're seeing it as it was a year ago. Follow? I nodded. He continued. All stars are many light years away from us. Some hundreds of light years. Betelgeuse is 520 light years away. So, we are seeing Betelgeuse, I began and paused. My father completed the thought for me. As it was 7 years before Christopher Columbus set sail on the voyage that took him to America. Now, look at that big blue-white star, the one diagonally across from Betelgeuse below the belt of Orion. That's Rigel. I don't know its Tamil name, but that star Rigel is 900 light years away. We see that star tonight, the way it was when this land, all of southern India, was ruled by the Chola emperors. The light that now reaches our eyes left that star when Kulothungan I sat on the Chola throne. I sucked in my breath. My mind whirled in wild, dizzy spirals, corkscrewing through time and space. I had just finished reading Kadalpura, a thumper of a novel set during the reign of Kulothungan I, a swashbuckling adventure on the high seas, featuring the mighty armada that sailed to conquer and annex the other kingdoms of South Asia through the Chola Empire. The sky was a snapshot in time and off time. I had never thought of it as a multiple exposure photograph, but that's what it was. And each exposure occurred in a different era of history, shaping the panoramic collage that stretched across the heavens at this particular moment in time. I felt so small, so insignificant, and so incapable of taking it in all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishwas. That was beautiful. I'm so blown away by all of you, but that was, wow, so impactful, that part of the story. Yeah, thank you. All right, our final reader this evening is Lauren K. Watel. Lauren's debut collection, Book of Potions, won the Catherine A. Morton Prize in Poetry from Sarabande Books. Her potions, which are poems plus fiction, translations, essays, poetry, and fiction, have appeared widely. She earned an MA in English from Hollins College and a PhD in Women's Studies from Emory University, mainly to avoid gainful employment. A native of Dallas, Texas, she lives in Decatur, Georgia. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, India. Thank you, poets and writers, for supporting all writers, but especially for supporting the over 50 crowd. Thank you, Vishwas, Yael, Jen, and Princess. Those were beautiful and moving readings. And thank you for everyone who zoomed in. And for those of you out there who don't have a book yet, it's never too late. I'm going to read 2 potions. The first is called When I Was Young. When I was young, I had many enemies. I prayed for vengeance night and day, but the gods didn't hear me, and my enemies flourished. As I grew older, my desire for vengeance weakened, as did my enemies. By the time I reached old age, I no longer sought revenge, but craved rest and peace. I died happily, wishing my enemies well. When I arrived in the lands beyond life, I found that the gods had heard my prayers after all. There were my enemies, every last one, and some I didn't even remember, nor the wrongs they had done me. For each of them, the gods had devised a punishment, one more diabolical and torturous than the last, and all of them to the end of time. The screams, they were beyond imagining, and so loud. When it hits you that your face is missing, peeled back from your skull front like a lavish window display lifted from a fancy shop, you can do nothing. It's already long gone. And you weren't even aware of the loss because your face disappeared while you were distracted, admiring the scenery. Like that summer in Avignon, on a stroll along the Rue de la Balance, and before you knew it, a throng of roaming women had you surrounded. They clawed at your purse and taunted you. That time you managed to hold on to your possessions. This time, no such luck. Your face gone in an instant. And you had no idea until you saw it staring back at you with those eyes, your eyes, burning blue, and that plaintive, ravaged expression, your expression, the one that comes over you when it hits you anew, that your face has been taken, that your sadness has been taken, your longing and regret, your shame, your youth, your sense of your own beauty, your pride, all taken, all peeled away. Who could have done this to you? Was it someone you knew or a stranger? Your best friend in the world? An enemy, perhaps, though at this point, could you tell the difference? Or were you the culprit? By not paying attention, by trusting in good intentions, assuming the best. But whatever the case, whoever the taker, your face is gone, and it's never coming back. You walk around faceless, clutching your jawbones, your cheekbones with a tender vigilance, because you need bones to face whatever's coming. You need something hard to absorb the impact of the next blow. Thank you.
Oof, thank you, Lauren. Yes, so fierce when it hits you that your face is missing. That's it. I love it. Thank you. Oh, all of you five. What? You guys are a treat tonight, right? All right. So that was amazing. Thank you all for sharing your literary brilliance with us, truly. And now, as all the authors join me back on screen, we are going to head into the Q&A portion. And as a reminder for the audience, if anyone has a question for our authors, please feel free to share it in the chat, and I will try my absolute best to incorporate as many of your questions as humanly possible before we sign off. Yeah? So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And I'd love to begin with an industry question, which I know always serves our audience really well. Can you all share what the journey to book publication actually looked like for you all, including whether or not you have an agent or you went the contest route, which I know some of you spoke about a little bit in your essays? Can you just give an overview of what that was like, and if you have any practical publishing tips that you learned along the way, that would be really helpful to share as well.
I'll go first.
Oh, sorry.
We did it at the same time.
The princess, you must go. You're the
You go.
princess. You go.
But your name is so much prettier. I will go first, maybe because mine is the simplest of all, maybe, I think. So I wrote and published short stories in a few journals, and one of them was a journal called Kweli Journal, and the editor published, I think, 2 or 3 of my stories. And she asked, so my story is not typical in the sense of the long journey to get an agent, but she had someone in mind who she'd worked with other writers who she knew was interested in the kind of writing that I do. And she asked me if she could pass my story to her. What took the long time for me was the fact that I thought I knew how to write when I started. So I knew how to write a short story. I did not know how to write a novel. And so while I was, even after the agent signed me, it took me about 10 years of going back and forth and revision. And, we are all adults and we're working full time and things like that. And so it took me about 10 years to revise and get it to a point where she felt that it could withstand the rigors of the publishing world. So as I said in my essay, my one thing I used to tell myself was, even when I wanted to give up, because 10 years feels like a long time when you're writing and you're working on that, like that one thing. I told myself I have to be here doing something anyway. I may as well be writing toward the thing and moving toward the thing that I really feel like I'm here to do and that I love. So every time they would send it back and say, it's not ready yet, it's not ready yet, I would say, this is the thing I want to do, and I may as well keep on and keep trying. So perseverance is the thing that I'm going to shout from the rooftops for those of you who are still trying. Keep going.
So I'm just going to jump off what Princess said. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I do not have an agent, so this is a poetry collection, but my MFA major was in memoir. So that is what I was working towards my memoir. But I always wanted to be a poet. And, when I was in my MFA, I would stick my nose in every poetry class I could. And I had a real passion for it. So when I came out of my program, I had no publications, and you really can't say you're an author if you don't have any publications. So I sent out 300 submissions, over probably a year and a half, just boom, boom, boom. Just I kept going. And I was very startled when this collection was accepted, because it was the poetry collection, and that and I thought the memoir would go first, and the memoir is still out there, agentless. Um, but I think when you're approaching getting your work published, one thing that's important that Princess touched on as well is it good enough to be published? This is a big thing. And I had wonderful mentors that said, okay, if your poems are passed over, maybe 20, 30 times, you probably need to look at revision, look at where you're sending it. So these things were in my mind, and I wasn't really taking it personally. The more you send out, the less you take personally. If you only have five things you're sending out, each one of those is personal. But when you send out more, it's just less personal and treating it as a game. Okay, my goal is to get 100 rejections in this next 6 months. Okay, let me put it in my little file here. So that's how things went about. And when I submitted to UPK, it was a free submission. And that's another consideration when you are submitting. Things have fees. I was not particularly oriented to a contest. This was why I was very surprised to be selected in this way, because my logical brain is like, you have a small chance to be the one, but if it's a call, you have a bigger chance to be picked to be published. But you know what? You need to be open-minded to the path that might unfold for you, and not be rigid about, I am going here like this, because you might be going there like that if you are open to it. So yeah, my advice is don't give up, keep going. And yeah, that's it.
Well, like Princess, I also was published in many literary journals, and I had a novel that wasn't going anywhere. And so I thought about the contest routes, and so I made this short story collection and submitted it to contests. It became a finalist in some contests, so I knew, there was some people liked it, and finally it won Thank you, Orison Books. And I don't have an MFA, but I read extensively. And I have some good professors, Professor Tolstoy, Professor Dickens, Professor Naipaul, Professor Hemingway. So I suggest that you should read extensively. That's a big help.
Lauren, go ahead.
Okay, technology. 20 years ago, I won the Poets and Writers Exchange in Fiction from Georgia. A Story of Mine was chosen by Jennifer Egan. I came to New York and I met agents and editors. I gave a reading at Housing Works, and an agent came up to me and said she wanted to represent me. So I thought I was done, because everyone told me an agent was harder to get than an editor. So I was thrilled. And that agent could not sell the novel that I had. And so I wrote another one, and I had another agent. And that agent could not sell that novel either. So I spent a lot of years very frustrated and enraged and bitter. And I wrote another novel for which I could not get an agent. And so 4 years ago, at the age of 54, I decided I was done looking for an agent, that I just wanted to submit, like Yael and everyone, as much work as possible of different kinds, and that I would open myself up to whatever happened, but that I would try to have a book in 3 years. And I had a manuscript of stories, two different odd poetry slash prose manuscripts, but I had a novel, but like Yael, I had hundreds in a few years, hundreds of submissions, and eventually it just seemed a lucky break. But I submitted to many, many contests and many open submission periods. And so I guess my practical advice is to protect your morale. And to do that, I would say, have perspective. A book is wonderful and life-changing in certain ways, but it actually will not make you like yourself more, and it will not solve your problems. It will give you different problems. But in fact, your life is much fuller than your book, your writing. Your life should, I hope, full of love and other things. And the more you live your life and love your people and do your work and read, as Vishwas said, have your faith, write your best work, get better, and you'll have your book. But keep your perspective.
Great. Thank you. When I went to grad school, I asked a mentor of mine how long it took him from grad school until his first book was published. And his was a short story collection, and he told me 7 years. And I said, 7 years? And my jaw dropped. And 17 years later, here I am. It took me 17 years to finish the book, which I think is so funny because it was a really fast 17 years in so many ways. I was living a life. I was not querying agents, but I was always writing and always publishing, always meeting with writing friends, doing retreats, doing conferences. I felt like a writer. I identified as a writer. I knew that I was not yet an author, but there was no way I didn't see myself as a writer. It was what I did. It was important to me. But I was a little bit of a chicken, and I didn't query agents. A friend of mine eventually said, "Can I just see one essay to pass along to an agent?" And I said, "My book's not done." And he said, "Just one." And I said, my book's not done. He said, just give it to me. So he did. He passed it along to the agent. And she said, can we meet? And I said, we can, but my book's not done. This is, I don't know, so many years into the process. And she said, can I see more pages? And I said, you can, but it's not done. Like the whole book is still not done. And she said, that's okay. Just give me more pages. And she very patiently waited over, I don't know, a year or so and would just check in with me every 6 months or so. And I started to feel more real because I continued to publish and I continued to hear from this nice agent who kept checking in. Eventually, over COVID, she said, why don't we just sign this and then you finish the book that you keep telling me is not done? And there was something about having a contract that made me trust that it was real and that I was valued enough to do it. Like, I don't know why so often we need permission. And this friend that took my essay gave me permission. This agent gave me permission. But actually, kind of along the lines of what Lauren was saying, along the way, community is what really made me a writer and made my life rich. And it was nice to build a book, but it's been even better to build the folks who helped me make it. And I don't think that I would have a book or much of a life without the community who worked with me to make it happen. So that's the real value of it. And also, at least for me, that was the secret. Having people who shoved me along while I was doing the work, always doing the work, but yeah.
Thank you all. Here's a question from the audience. Has anything changed over the years about why you write or for whom you write since you first started writing? And what is that change about why you write now versus earlier, or who you're writing for?
I'll jump in again. I saw in the chat someone said, do it for the process and not the results. And I think that is excellent advice. When I was getting my MFA in my late 20s, I was doing it because I wanted to be an author. I thought I had a little, a writing, a little bit of talent, and I loved books, and I wanted to be an author. That's not what kept me writing. What kept me writing was, as Vishwas said, the love of reading. As Jen said, the love of the work, the stories. And so by the time by the time the book was actually published or I got an agent, I was doing it because I loved writing, and I felt the compulsion to write, the love of writing, and I was doing it for the process, for the joy of writing. I let go of the results. Like, whatever happens, I can't control that, but I can control whether or not I keep writing. So that's what changed for me over the years.
I'm just gonna say that the reason I'm writing hasn't changed. I started to write because I wanted to write about the women in my family that, were left behind. They had other obligations, raising families, running a house. My grandmother had 6 children. She lost 4. So specifically, I wanted to write about her, but I also wanted to write because I feel like writing is a chain. And, when I was a teenager devouring books, I feel like Toni Morrison reached for me, Margaret Atwood reached for me through their words. And we don't know the impact that our writing has. Like, there's someone out there right now who's reading what we've written. It means a lot to them. It's going to inspire them and it's going to help them on their journey. So I'm reaching, to put my hand out in the chain as well, backwards to the ancestors and forwards to other people.
You're muted, Vishwas. There you go.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like Princess said, I write for the joy of writing. And that hasn't changed over the years. I have a story to tell, and I try to tell it the best way I can. What's delayed it is all the things that happened in my life, As I wrote in the essay, my father's death and all the problems that came after that, and including health concerns. I mean, it affected my health also. That's what delayed the publication, but nothing really has changed. I wanted to write, and I write.
I would maybe be a departure. I don't always love writing. I enjoy sometimes having written. Sometimes I enjoy writing. Um, I used to write. I wanted other writers to appreciate what I was writing, and then I started teaching in prisons and reading other books in the world. And then I realized I don't actually. I mean, it's lovely if writers read what I write, but um, I want people in the world um, who may not typically feel invited into literature to read what I write as well. And I think there's a way to do it where everyone, writers and folks who don't always feel invited into literature, both enjoy your work. And that is what matters to me a lot more than when I first started writing. So
For me, right before when I graduated high school and I left home and went to college, my father committed suicide right away. And I had my first creative writing class. And I wasn't able to write about my father for 30 years, but I think I immediately started writing to survive, to make sense of my agonies and my pain and my confusion and my anxiety. And I think over the years, I've always written. It's, I think being human is so difficult. And I think writing is a really amazing, difficult, challenging way to articulate how to live or how not to live or how to love or how to love badly. And I would say for me, the one thing that has changed is that because I've written so long, really with no recognition or very little, I was always writing for myself and to figure out things. And the thing that has changed is that I have figured out some things because I'm pushing 60 and you tend to. And so I feel less agonized, and I can feel that now people can maybe benefit, and I can connect with people through what I say because I try to be honest. And when you are, it's a relief to people when you say things that no one will say because they're true anyway. So I think that's what changed for me, is that I feel a little bit more in control of so less agonized and more wanting to connect over the difficult things in life.
Yeah, thank you all for your honesty. I really appreciate that. Here's a craft question. What was the revision process like for you all throughout writing? Was it easy? Did it take a long time? Like, was the writing part easy and then the revision was hard? How did it feel? It's different for each writer.
I'll go. I think revision is always hard. Uh, you'll go to sleep feeling accomplished and like, I did this, and yes, I got this many pages and words. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you look at it the next day, you're like, what is this? Oh no, this is no good whatsoever. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, um, with thinking what I've written is good and then being like, oh my gosh, no, it's awful. I think it's very handy to have another eye of someone you trust, to look at it and then, your manuscript. But one thing is very important when you're showing other people your work is to keep in mind your reader. Um, One of my mentors is my reader. And someone that asked to see my manuscript was not my reader. So the person who was not my reader saw my manuscript. She's like, oh no, honey, you need to start all over. No, 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 no. And then my mentor said, yes, 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 you are good to go. Go, girl. And so I had a my manuscript was picked up like 6 weeks after both of those conversations were happening at the same time. So just keep in mind who is your reader and when they're looking at your work. But yeah, revision can be tough, and be patient with yourself. Time is your best friend. When you can leave it, just even for days where you're not just constantly looking at it and messing with it, or if you can give yourself a few months to come back to it.
I would say revision is probably my favorite part. And I know that sounds weird, but yeah, it is. I know it sounds weird, but revision is my favorite part because the writing part for me is hard, like to try to get close to what I mean to say, what I feel like I really want to say. It's a struggle to get that part on the page. And then once I have something that's close, during revision, I can go back and get it closer and closer and closer to what I really meant for it to be or really want it to be. And the last thing I would say about revision is, you know, do all you can. For me, this works for me. I do all I can on my own, and when I get to the point where I feel like I can't make it any better and I'm actually starting to mess it up, that's when I give it to my writers group to see what they have to say about it. But I try to take it as far as I can on my own because I don't want anyone else's ideas there yet. I want to see what I have to say first, and then I give it to other people. Mhm.
In my case, revising the individual essays was a delight for me. Once the structure is set and kind of like Princess, once I know kind of what I'm doing, I have a blast with it. It's so much fun, but it was a different beast revising the book itself because all those essays had to go together. And because it took place over 17 years, I had to face the old voice that I had written. I had to face old concerns and in some cases ideas that no longer fit my way of thinking, which was very humbling. And also sometimes craft choices that I had grown, I thought maybe a little bit more sophisticated then. And so it was really humbling to have to reckon with the younger writer me and the younger thoughts and to watch my mind grow over time and my ideas change. And then the dilemma in how to revise that in a way that was authentic to the essay that was then written, but didn't necessarily square with the author that I am today for the book I'm putting out tomorrow. That was a challenge that really did make me cry a lot. So a lot of selves in a 17-year-old book.
Well, all of my stories were published in literary journals, and some were published as I submitted them. But many, I had to go, the editors wanted revisions. And in some cases, we went back and forth and back and forth. And what that taught me was, I write what I know, but do readers get it? That's the thing that these editors of the literary journals taught me. You have to write for the readers, and just don't assume they know everything that you know. And that's why I think revision is very important. And I write for a wide audience. So what a reader in the United States might get, a reader in India may not get. So how do you put it so that in this age of the internet, a universal audience can get it? It's something that I learned and something that I'm constantly learning.
The work in my book was written in a very stark way, differentiating between creating and revising. I wrote the pieces in the book extremely quickly without thinking, stopping or censoring or anything. Not really for publication in a notebook by hand. And I didn't look at them or read them or consider them anything. And then years later, I discovered the notebook. And so I realized they were very weird and that there was something there. And so in my mind, the creative part of my book was entirely just from the unconscious, that I had complete freedom. I didn't even think it would amount to anything. And I had complete freedom. I went very quickly. I wasn't thinking at all. I wasn't meaning to do anything. So it was extreme on the total unconscious blah. I mean, I probably wrote them all 5 or 10 minutes. That's it. And then seeing them years later, seeing I had something and making it into a book, very much bringing a completely different part of the brain, my intellect, my discernment, my reading, and bringing that sort of critical self to looking at my own work as if someone else had written it, and using that completely different process and that completely different part of the brain to make what I had on the page, which was weird and wild and interesting, but maybe not the best it could be. So that's what was my process, very divided in terms of parts of the brain and ways of thinking about writing.
Yeah, thank you all. And for anyone looking for like first readers for their work, we do have poets and writers groups that's available on our website where you can join writers groups or start your own to have like-minded individuals review your work together. So if we haven't already dropped that in the chat, we can do that for you all. I do want to do one last question just because your answers are so brilliant. I can't not ask this question. And this is a good one that we don't often hear. How do you combat imposter syndrome as a writer? Lightning round.
Okay, I'm starting. Hey, if everybody's an imposter, nobody's an imposter. Let's just all agree. We're imposters. Just do it. So what?
Okay, I'll go. I don't really have imposter syndrome, and I'll put that down to my mother because, oh, I'm echoing. Um, she was just always like yelling at me, like, listen, you need to do, and you need to go, and when you grow up, you have to blah, blah, blah. So when I became an adult, I just like left the gate like a thoroughbred based on what my mother told me, and I believed I could do anything and be anything. And of course, I failed for like, I don't know, 40 years or something. But I kept going and I had this like kind of overinflated version of myself. And I always said I was delusional, and delusion has worked really well for me. So I'm just keeping going with that.
I say do it anyway, even if because I definitely feel like I have my friends laughed at me because even like up until a few months before the book was published, I kept going, it reads like a book now. Like when I read it, it sounds like a book. And they're like, well, yeah, because it is a book. Just do it anyway. You don't have to, you don't have to be 100% sure. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep going.
I will hop in hoping Vishwas has a more inspirational answer to end us with. Like Princess, I don't have a cure for imposter syndrome. I suffer mightily, and I'm telling you, I thought the first publication was going to solve that. The first publication in the literary journal, it did not. I thought the first prize was going to solve it. It did not. I thought the first book was going to convince me, and then I was like, they just did it to be nice, y'all. It's fierce. Like I will never, I don't think I'll ever get over imposter syndrome. I really don't. I think like Princess, you just do it anyway. And so I love to leave myself trails of credentials to convince myself, but it only works for a little bit. It doesn't fix it. So my advice is much like Princess said, I have imposter syndrome and I don't see it going anywhere. It hasn't for the last 52 years. And so I'm just saying that for the folks in the audience who don't have a fix for it. You just do it anyway. You just do it scared and you just do it doubting. That's it.
When you read a book and you like it very much and you recommend it, and some of your friends read it and say, that's crap. Yeah. So there's no one thing that can please everybody. So I concur with my other fellow writers and say, just do it anyway and put it out in the world, and you'll find the people who like it.
Yes, just do it. That's the logo. Yeah, we're going to
Yeah,
take away from
yeah.
Nike and repurpose it as writers. I love that. All right. It's been such a joy sharing space with you all this evening and listening to the five of you read and respond to our questions. On behalf of Poets and Writers, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Jennifer, Princess, Yael, Vishwas, and Lauren for joining us over Zoom and for adding your brilliant, brilliant voices to the world with the publication of your debuts. We will drop once more in the group chat the link to our bookshop page, including all five titles and the ability to easily purchase them, as well as the link to the online feature where you can listen to and read excerpts from their books, and a link to our membership page for those of you who would like to support our organization and become a member of the Poets and Writers community so we can continue our work of supporting and uplifting wonderful people such as yourselves. A round of applause for our Zoom audience this evening for spending time with us. You guys really showed up today, gave a lot of love. Tonight's event has also been recorded, so a video of the readings and the Q&A, which was phenomenal, will be available soon on our YouTube page as well as on our website. So be on the lookout for that. This officially concludes the celebration of our 2025 5 over 50 authors. Thank you all for joining us, and I'm wishing you all a relaxing upcoming weekend and a joyous end of the year. Until next time, thank you all, thank you all, thank you all. Bye, everyone.
Hi, Lena. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.